Have you ever, promised yourself never again? Like, exactly the visceral feeling I'm talking
Oh,
about.
absolutely. The sting of immediate regret.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You make a painful mistake. Maybe you get into a terrible blow-up argument over something entirely trivial. Or maybe you make a really bad financial bet.
Or you trust someone, even though literally every alarm bell in your head was just screaming at you.
Yes. And in the immediate aftermath, when that physical, just awful feeling is washing over you, you swear to yourself, I am never, ever doing that again.
And yet,
And yet, only to find yourself, maybe a week later or a year later, doing the exact precise same thing.
it's a universally humbling experience, honestly. And the truly frustrating part isn't just that we repeat the mistake.
Right.
It's that we so often find ourselves repeating it in almost the exact same context, sometimes even with the exact same people. We look back and just wonder how we managed to walk straight into the identical trap.
It is absolutely maddening when you catch yourself doing it. And, well, that perfectly sets up our mission for this deep dive. Today, we have a fascinating, somewhat provocative essay in front of us.
Very provocative.
Yeah, it was published on January 2nd, 2024 by an author named Shuo Feng, and it features this incredibly striking title, Will Hitting a Wall Lead to Enlightenment?
Which is such a great question.
It really is. So our goal today is to investigate this incredibly blunt critique of human nature. We are going to explore why the whole concept of the School of Hard Knocks.
The idea that pain just automatically teaches us not to do things.
Exactly. Why that might actually be a school with 0 graduates. Okay, let's unpack this. We're always told that pain is our greatest teacher. Every culture has idioms about it. But this author argues that humanity is basically skipping class entirely.
Yeah, it really is a text that challenges some of our deepest, most comforting assumptions about learning and growth. I mean, we like to think of ourselves as highly rational creatures.
Of course, we think we're so logical.
Right. We assume we operate on a system of negative feedback. If you touch a hot stove and it burns, you stop touching the stove.
Makes perfect sense.
But Shui Feng is forcing us to look at the undeniable, really messy reality of our broader behavior. He's preparing us for a rather stark exploration of why we seem so fundamentally wired to just bypass that negative feedback entirely.
Well, he starts by taking aim at 3 very famous traditional Chinese proverbs to illustrate this point, right?
Yes, the essay opens by quoting these 3 sayings that essentially serve as the cultural bedrock for how we view stubbornness.
What do they get? The first one is about the wall, right?
Right. The first is, one doesn't turn back until hitting a wall.
Okay.
The second is, one's heart won't give up until reaching the Yellow River. The Yellow River here basically symbolizing an absolute dead end, a natural boundary you just cannot cross.
Got it. And the third one is pretty dark.
Extremely dark. It's the most definitive one. One won't shed tears until seeing the coffin.
Wow. Meaning, you have to be faced with the ultimate, absolute worst-case consequence, like literal mortality or total ruin, before you finally wake up and change your ways.
Exactly the premise. But
Yeah.
Shui Feng introduces a counter-thesis that is just wonderfully direct. He looks at human history, and he looks at everyday behavior, and he says, no, actually.
Wait, no.
No. Even after hitting the literal wall, people still will not turn back.
Oh, wow.
Even after reaching the banks of the Yellow River, they will not give up. And even after seeing the coffin, they still will not shed a tear.
Man, he is completely calling our bluff there. But I have to ask, why do these proverbs even exist in the first place if they aren't true? Like, if human behavior contradicts them, why do they survive generation after generation?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to our desperate need for psychological comfort.
Comfort. How so?
Think about how terrifying it is to live in a world where people, including ourselves, honestly can suffer massive, devastating consequences and learn absolutely nothing from them.
Oh, yeah. That is a terrifying thought.
So we invent these proverbs because we want to believe that there is a natural built-in limit to human stubbornness. We want to believe that extreme situations act as a fail-safe, that they will eventually force a behavioral change.
It gives us a sense of order.
Exactly. It gives us hope for others who are acting destructively, and it gives us hope for ourselves. But Shui Feng's contrarian realization just strips that comforting illusion entirely away.
I mean, I have to push back on this a little bit, though. Let's use an analogy to look at the mechanics of learning. Think about a video game.
Okay, a video game.
Yeah. If you are playing a game and your character dies because you made them walk into a fire, you immediately learn to stop walking into the fire. The feedback loop is instant, and the behavioral change is permanent.
Right.
So why does Shefeng argue real life is so fundamentally different? Is the author just being overly cynical here? Or is there some mechanism we are missing?
Well, that analogy actually highlights the core problem, because in a video game, the rules are coded, right? The fire is always obviously fire. The environment is perfectly consistent.
True, it doesn't change on you.
Exactly. But in real life, the walls we hit are masters of disguise. To prove his point, Xu Feng actually moves away from the abstract proverbs and starts cataloging these incredibly relatable, everyday examples.
Yeah, he shifts from the philosophical to the domestic.
Right, looking at things like marriage and arguments.
Let's get into those everyday examples because this is where the essay really forces you to look at your own life. He talks about marriage and the cycle of arguing.
Oh, the cycle of arguing.
Yeah, he points out that someone might divorce due to marital discord, which is, a massive life-altering wall to hit.
A huge wall.
But then before long, they get married again and just continue hitting the exact same wall with a completely new person.
Because they haven't changed themselves.
Right. Or take the act of arguing itself. He notes that disputes are so common, especially between spouses, yet we argue repeatedly without ever turning back, never actually changing our underlying communication style.
And we have to ask why we do that. The mechanism here is externalization.
Externalization.
Yeah, when the marriage fails or the argument blows up, the person doesn't view their own communication style as the wall, they view the other person as the wall.
Oh, I see. They think, well, my ex-spouse was the problem.
Exactly. So when they enter a new relationship, they haven't learned to avoid the fire. They just think they're walking into a different room.
That is so true, which perfectly transitions into his next point about work and money, where the stakes get even higher. He points out how many people work incredibly hard all year long, grinding away, only to make very little money.
Right, the real world Yellow River.
Exactly. That exhaustion, that absolute lack of reward, is the equivalent of reaching the Yellow River. It is a total dead end. And yet, what happens the next year?
They dive right back in.
They dive right back into the exact same river. They continue the same pattern of labor without changing their strategy or, questioning the system they're in.
Well, because questioning the system requires a massive expenditure of mental and emotional energy.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. It's often so much easier to just repeat a familiar, painful routine than to step into the terrifying unknown of doing something completely different. Which brings us to the casino example.
Yes, the casino.
That example exposes the most fascinating psychological mechanism in the entire text, I think.
He says, has you ever lost money at a casino? That is obviously hitting a wall. You walk out of there feeling battered and bruised, financially and emotionally. Your bank account is totally drained.
But people willingly go back.
They go right back. And Su Feng asks this brilliant, almost sarcastic question. Is the wall made of cotton?
Is the wall made of cotton? It is such a profound image. Why does a concrete financial ruin feel soft to the gambler?
Is it the adrenaline? Like the dopamine hit of the near miss, masking the impact of the loss?
I mean, the dopamine absolutely masks the pain, yes. But Xu Feng points to something even more subtle here. The delusion of slight variations.
Slight variations.
Yeah, he discusses this in the context of being deceived. You try to take advantage of a situation, you try to gain the upper hand, and you end up getting tricked.
Right. You would think, okay, lesson learned, I won't fall for a scam again. But then you fall for the exact same trick again, simply because the scammer changed the wording slightly. Let me stop you there because here's where it gets really interesting. If we want to understand the why behind this, it reminds me of an artificial intelligence model that has been poorly trained.
Oh, how so?
Well, in computer science, there's this concept called overfitting. If you train an AI to recognize that a red fire is dangerous, and then you show it a blue fire, the AI will walk right into the blue fire and burn to a crisp.
Because it didn't learn what fire actually is.
Right. You learn the specific superficial detail, the color red, instead of the underlying principle, which is the heat. Is Xu Feng essentially saying that human beings are constantly overfitting our life lessons?
That is a phenomenal way to describe it. Yes, we are chronically overfitting our experiences. The gambler thinks, well, last time I lost on blackjack, but this time I'm playing roulette.
Oh, well.
Yeah. The person getting scammed thinks, well, the last email was from a prince, but this one is from my bank. The superficial details, the fresh coat of paint, they completely blind us to the brick wall underneath.
We think it's a door.
Exactly. We don't recognize the underlying structure of our own mistakes, so we convince ourselves we are walking through a door when really we are just ramming our heads into the exact same wall from a slightly different angle.
This makes so much sense when you think about your own inbox or, maybe that one toxic relationship dynamic you just keep falling into. We are completely distracted by the novelty of the context.
And Feng doesn't stop with these daily individual missteps either. He scales this concept way up.
Yeah, he takes us from the immediate everyday loop of casinos and arguments into these deeper generational and even spiritual blind spots.
He does. The essay shifts gears profoundly here. He brings up the concept of praying at temples. He points out that people go to temples, they burn incense, they bow, and they pray fervently for their desires to be fulfilled. But when the desires aren't fulfilled, when Temple A clearly doesn't work, people don't stop and question the practice itself.
They just go to Temple B.
Exactly. They don't look inward to see if their desires are the problem. Instead, they just move on to Temple B or Temple C. They keep up the exact same routine.
Hold on, let me play devil's advocate here.
Hmm.
Isn't passing down a temple ritual just a matter of cultural tradition? I mean, seeking comfort in a ritual, even if you don't get the specific promotion you prayed for, it serves a psychological purpose. Why does Femin view that as hitting a wall?
Well, it's an important distinction to make. Feng isn't attacking the cultural heritage of the temple itself. He is critiquing the outsourcing of internal change to external forces.
Outsourcing, okay.
Yeah, the tragedy, as he points out, is the generational transfer of this avoidance. If people never realize that the external solution isn't working, if they never break through the wall of their own unexamined desires, they just pass the behavior down.
They teach their kids to do it.
Right. They encourage their children and their grandchildren to keep hitting the exact same wall, expecting a magical external intervention, rather than doing the hard work of internal growth.
Man, it's like a spiritual treadmill. You're constantly walking, but you never actually go anywhere.
Exactly.
And he makes a very similar point about how we listen to people in power. He notes that some people speak beautifully, but their actions have absolutely nothing to do with their words.
Right, the politicians, the leaders.
Yeah, and Schweffing is quite fair here. He says believing them once is perfectly understandable. But why do we continue to pin our hopes on them? You hit the wall once when they lied to you the first time, so why do you keep hitting it?
Because this translates to so many areas of life, right? Politics, corporate leadership, even personal friendships. We become addicted to the beautiful words because the words promise us that they will fix things so we don't have to.
But wait, I have to push back on this idea of pinning our hopes on people. Isn't hope a necessary human survival trait?
How do you mean?
Well, if we stop hoping that Temple B might finally give us peace, or we stop hoping that a leader's beautiful words might actually be true this time, don't we just become, like, deeply miserable, paranoid cynics?
That's a dark way to look at it, sure.
Right. If someone lies to me and I stop trusting entirely, I'm just living in an emotional bunker. Is the author confusing hope with foolishness?
That raises an important question, maybe the most important one in the text. Where is the line between learning from the wall and just giving up on society entirely?
Yeah, exactly.
I think Shuang would argue that genuine hope and mindless repetition are entirely different species. Genuine hope is active. It requires you to synthesize the pain of the past and change your strategy to reach a better outcome.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just doing the exact same thing over and over again while wishing for a different result, that isn't hope. That is an avoidance of reality.
So it's the difference between actionable hope and passive hope.
Exactly. Passive hope is outsourcing your salvation to the next temple, the next charismatic leader, or the next spin of the roulette wheel. It's relying on the world to change so you don't have to.
Wow.
Actionable hope, true enlightenment in this context, requires the painful introspection of saying, my method is flawed. I'm the common denominator in all my broken relationships or bad investments.
Which is so hard to do.
So hard. And frankly, Feng suggests we avoid that introspection at all costs. He actually brings up a rather uncomfortable observation about the elderly to hammer this home.
Yes, this part felt quite harsh, but honestly hard to ignore. We culturally associate old age with inherent wisdom, but he challenges the reader to look closely at many elderly people and ask, have they actually changed any of the bad habits from their youth?
And his answer is a resounding no.
Not at all. Decades pass, their bodies age, but the internal mechanisms remain exactly the same. Zero introspection, zero awakening.
They hit the wall daily, jump in the river yearly, and eventually lie in the coffin without shedding a single tear of self-awareness. And speaking of the coffin, this is where the essay scales up to its absolute darkest, ultimate example of humanity's inability to learn the concept of war.
Yeah, he states it point blank, wars result in death. War is a coffin. Yet for thousands of years, people continue marching into wars.
Endlessly.
They don't cry when they see the coffin, and tragically, they don't even shed a tear after entering it. The sheer scale of this observation is staggering.
What's fascinating here is how seamlessly the essay connects the micro to the macro. It suggests that the exact same psychological flaw that makes a person walk back into a casino after losing their savings
Right.
is the identical flaw that makes humanity repeatedly plunge into catastrophic global conflicts.
That is wild.
The stakes escalate, obviously, but the underlying mechanism, the absolute stubborn refusal to adapt to the reality of the walls we are hitting, remains perfectly intact. We convince ourselves that this war, with these weapons, for this cause, will somehow not result in a coffin.
We overfit the data of history.
Precisely. We overfit the data.
We think we're fighting a blue fire war instead of a red fire war, completely ignoring the heat.
Exact.
Which brings us to the climax of his argument. We've established this continuous, frustrating loop of human error. We don't learn from the wall, the river, or the coffin. But then Zhufen contrasts this internal psychological stagnation with our external societal advancement.
And the contrast he draws is incredibly jarring.
Oh, it really is.
Mhm.
Zhufen concludes the essay by looking at the staggering scientific and technological progress we have made over the centuries.
It's undeniable. We have completely revolutionized our production methods. We have transformed transportation and communication. We live in an era of an unimaginable abundance of goods.
But his ultimate thesis is that none of this brilliant external progress has fundamentally elevated human nature.
No, not at all.
The imagery he uses to describe this is so vivid. He says the person riding a slow, plodding bullock cart 100 years ago and the person flying a supersonic plane today are essentially the exact same person.
It's true. The person wearing a traditional long gown a century ago and the person wearing a modern, tailored business suit today are the same inside.
We just have shinier toys.
Shinier toys, vastly faster commutes. But countless people still flock to the river and the wall without a moment's hesitation.
It highlights a profound, almost tragic disconnect between technological evolution and psychological evolution.
Think about it. Humanity has spent thousands of years aggressively optimizing the physical world around us. We built airplanes, we erected skyscrapers, we engineered the internet.
We ruthlessly iterate on our technology until it works perfectly.
Right, but we have spent almost zero collective effort optimizing the inner world.
Yeah.
The fundamental architecture of the human mind, the part of us that engages in petty arguments, the part of us that gambles away our safety, the part of us that marches into war, it remains utterly untouched by all of our scientific revolutions.
So what does this all mean? It's like we've upgraded our hardware to the latest, fastest smartphone, but we're still running the exact same buggy software from the Stone Age.
That is the perfect way to summarize it. We can physically fly across the globe in a matter of hours, but the moment we land, we will immediately get into the exact same petty, ego-driven argument with our spouse that a couple riding in a bullock cart would have had 1,000 years ago.
And we will be equally surprised when that argument leads us straight into the same emotional wall.
We have engineered out almost all of our physical discomforts, which, ironically, perhaps makes us even less equipped to handle the psychological discomfort required for real introspection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Shuofeng's essay actually ends on a heavy sigh. Alas, humanity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he sees this endless parade of people sitting in their modern suits and their modern airplanes, just crashing into the same ancient invisible barriers one after another endlessly. It is a deeply sobering realization that no amount of technology can save us from our own nature.
It really is a heavy realization. So, to bring all of this together for you listening, the ancient proverbs we lean on for comfort, the idea that reaching the wall or the river will save us, are, according to Shuofeng, fundamentally flawed.
Very flawed.
Hitting the wall, going broke at the casino, fighting in endless wars, or wearing a modern suit, none of it naturally or automatically changes our innate, stubborn human nature. We don't magically learn just because something hurts.
No, we don't. We have to actively, painfully choose to learn.
Right.
And that choice requires a level of relentless introspection that most of us will do almost anything to avoid. We vastly prefer to blame the wall or paint the wall a new color rather than admit we need to change the direction our feet are walking.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on today. If hitting the wall doesn't automatically teach us, and all the technological progress in the world doesn't save us from our own buggy software, perhaps the goal isn't to perfectly avoid the wall at all.
Because we are probably going to hit it again.
Let's face it, we definitely are. So what if true enlightenment isn't about somehow magically escaping this endless loop of human mistakes? What if it's simply about developing enough self-awareness to recognize the absolute absurdity of the loop while you were inside of it?
That's a great reframing.
Could simply being able to pause, look at the wall you just walked into, and laugh at your own ridiculous stubbornness be the actual first step to real change?
I think a little self-aware humor, recognizing our shared buggy software might be the only tool we truly have left to begin
Eh,
breaking the cycle.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a profound one, and hopefully it gives you a new lens to view your own recurring loops. We'll leave you with that thought and a friendly reminder to maybe just double check the structural integrity of the next cotton wall you find yourself walking toward. We'll catch you next time.